I'm Amy Dolan, and this is the Feeding People podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Feeding People podcast. I'm Amy Dolan, your host, and I'm so glad you're here for another fantastic conversation around the table. It is bone-chilling cold and snowy in Chicago, but we are warm inside tonight, so I'm glad that you're here. As you know, we believe the best conversations happen around the table, specifically a table filled with beautiful food. And so I hope each week as you listen to our episodes and you join me and my friends as we literally sit at my table, you will be inspired as you listen to our conversation about the magic of the table. And I hope that all of us together will discover that there are a million ways to feed people and be fed. So I'm so glad you're here tonight. As always, if you're able to go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review our show, we would love it so much. We love reading all of your reviews. And please subscribe to the podcast so that the minute it's available every single Wednesday, you are the first to hear it. So here we go. Here is my conversation tonight with my great friend, Danielle Tubbs. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Amy.
Thank you so much for braving the cold and coming to dinner, coming to the table tonight. I'm glad you're alive, actually.
Me too.
It's bad out there.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So Danielle and I met last year through our mutual friend. We're going to give a shout out to our mutual friend, Claudia Meir.
Whoop.
We love Claudia so much. And I love the story of how we met. I had seen Claudia the week before and we were hanging out and she told me, oh my gosh, Amy, you got to meet Danielle. She's got this vegan bakery and you should get some cookies for Sunday supper church. And it was like, she said all the right words. I was like, vegan bakery, cookies, Sunday supper church. I was like, yes, of course. And then did you email me like the next week? It was something weird. You either emailed or came to Sunday supper church. And I was like, wait a minute. Are you the one Claudia was telling me about?
Yeah, so Claudia had just had her birthday, I think, sometime in between.
Okay.
Maybe you meeting with her and then me coming to Sunday supper church. And so at her birthday party, I spoke with Aaron.
Okay.
And I'd heard about Sunday supper church for some years from Claudia, but never been invited.
Oh.
And then Aaron was telling me about it, and I was like, oh, wait, this whole time I should have talked to you? So he actually invited me, which now that you say he's an Enneagram 1, makes total sense because I'm an Enneagram 1, and we do what we say we're going to do. And send people like calendar requests and the right information and all of that.
The right information.
In like a nicely, just tailored email. Yes.
It was great. It was so cool. I'll never forget you walking in too, because I was just like, that's just like, we have a million stories like that at Sunday Supper Church, the way that like people come and the way we all meet. And I'll always think of that with you, like that Claudia had told me about you. And then literally like the next week you were there. And it's been such a joy, like getting to know you and having you part. You did a bourbon cake sermonette at Christmas, which was so awesome. And so I'm so glad that you're here and that everyone's going to experience the Danielle Tubbs magic tonight.
Thanks.
So how would you introduce yourself?
So I would introduce myself, I guess, right now for this podcast as Danielle Tubbs, CEO and founder of Tubby's Taste, vegan dessert for everyone. In addition to that, I would say I am a non-native to Chicago. I grew up in Miami. I come from a Jamaican mom and an African-American dad, and grew up in Miami. So this is my 8th winter, but people keep asking me how I'm doing.
I asked you at dinner.
Yeah. So I've adjusted. I mean, who loves this?
You
no
seem
one.
fine.
Yeah.
I know, you seem fine.
But you just, you wear that coat, you put on those boots, you may be wearing 3 pairs of pants. I don't know.
So tonight, because it's so cold, I made kale lentil soup, which I hope warmed you up.
It
Warmed
was good.
my belly.
I had 2 bowls.
Okay, good. And you are dairy-free, which I love.
Yes.
Kelly's dairy-free also, so we really don't eat dairy in this house except the cheese. I like secretly hide in the closet with all
butter.
the cheese and all the butter, right? But we're going to talk about this later, but it is really important to make food when people are coming to your house that everyone can eat. I am such that is just number one value to me. I made you a dairy-free meal so that we could literally all eat the same thing.
Yeah, it was delicious.
Good. I'm glad you liked it. I'm going to send that whole pot home with you too. So you're going to have food for days. Okay, so let's talk about what food was like for you growing up. This is like my very favorite question. Tell me, what did you eat? And specifically, did you learn to cook? Did you learn to bake? Who cooked in your family? What are your memories of food as a kid?
Yeah, so I grew up in a Jamaican household in Miami, and my mom is one of 10 kids.
Wow.
So growing up in Miami, I mean, it's very much a city of, it's an international city. Lots of people are from immigrant households. So growing up, my family had this one house that my aunt, who was one of the first to come over, kind of bought. And this was the house that everyone in the family at some point lived in. So even though I'm an only child to both of my parents, I grew up around tons of cousins. But my grandmother was very, very important. She was the head of the family. And so my grandfather passed away in Jamaica in 1980. And then my grandmother came over at that time. And so I just remember her always having a big pot of food on the stove. So no matter who was actually living at that house, you could just swing by.
Anytime? Wow.
Swing by after work or something, and she would have food going. I don't know who was paying for this at this point.
And how did she do that? Was she literally just cooking all the time?
So now that looking back, I feel like she had a legit schedule. It was always Jamaican food, but she would alternate between okay, we're having everything from what she would call poor people food to the things that you would get at a Jamaican restaurant today. Wow. Everything was good. My grandmother could just cook so well. Yeah. And so now it's funny because when I try to make Jamaican food, I make the poor people food stuff or just stuff my grandmother would adapt. Yeah. So it's just funny. My mom also, she came over to the US when she was 19 and she moved from Jamaica to Cleveland, Ohio, which is not a typical route for Jamaicans. They typically make it, I know, it's weird. They typically make it to Miami or New York or London. They don't go to Cleveland, Ohio.
I feel like this is a Drew Carey routine or something.
Yeah, Cleveland rocks. So she spent 20 years of her life in Cleveland. So and that's where she met my dad and that side of my family. So she is well versed in soul food and random I found this in a newspaper clipping, food, and then also Jamaican food. So she can do it all.
Incredible. I love that you just I just have such a picture in my mind of this house where your grandma was always cooking and everyone could stop by and you just had all these aunts and cousins and beautiful family. I mean, what's better than that? Yeah. Now, do you have memories of watching your grandmother cook and learning skills as she was going? Is that how you know the recipes today? Or did you just, I just enjoyed I didn't really have an interest in cooking or anything. And I just always enjoyed my grandmother's food. But now I'm her cookbook is right up there. I can see it. And I just now her cookbook is just gold to me. But did you learn from your grandma?
I learned a couple things. I learned how to make rice. I remember that was one of the first things I learned how to make. And then somehow I conquered that at I think 12. And then as an adult, now I have to read the package and be how do I make rice again? One question for you. Do you rinse your rice?
I mean, I don't. Don't tell anyone. I think that's a little much. But I do see the purpose. I do see the point in it. I'm glad I didn't serve you rice tonight.
Okay. I just wonder. I was is that a cultural thing?
I don't.
Is that
I'm a very simple cook too. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know.
Do you rinse your rice?
My grandmother said rinse your rice. Yeah. So I rinse my rice. So my family, I think the first thing I learned how to make as far as Jamaican food was Jamaican breakfast. And it was fried plantains or plantain.
Yeah.
I only say plantains around non-Jamaican people.
I know. I was going to say I only say plantains.
I will never say that around
white,
Jamaicans.
though. That's why.
It's plantain.
Plantain. Like Tin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like you
got
don't
it.
say the A. So
I made. Is it okay as a white person if I say it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Probably preferred,
Okay. Like to pronounce it correctly.
Yeah.
Got it.
But my grandmother taught me how to make just like simple things like fresh lemonade or with oranges, like orangeade.
Oh, yeah. So you would be like a little kid in the kitchen and interested, and she would show you how to do these things.
I think she actually more so made me do them.
Yeah.
She made me do them, but I saw the purpose,
Yeah. It's
and
like
a lot
she
of times
knew where your future was going or something.
Maybe. It also just mostly turned into her, like me making these things for her.
Oh.
So like she taught me how to make lemonade or orangeade, and then, once I made it and it was chilled, she's like, okay, go get me a cup of this,
I see. I see what she was doing.
So yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I love that you cook. I'm sure like you can feel her spirit and her love and her warmth now.
For sure.
That's what food does, right? Like it's all the memory and the love and the senses. And so when you make a family meal, it's something like very deep and meaningful, right? Because it brings you back to those times. Okay, so I want to get to Tubby's Taste because there's so much to talk about.
There is.
So let's get right to it. Okay, so you are the CEO of your vegan bakery company. And I just want you to start. I know the story, but like I want you to start at the beginning. Like, how did you get to running your own vegan bakery company? Like start at the beginning.
Sure. So I like to say that I come from a long line of Jamaican cake ladies. So on top of being good cooks, which I feel like most people can't do both.
Right.
My family can cook really well, but also bake. So my mom, I would go into that kitchen in that house at any point around like the holidays. And my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother would all be in there baking. And so I would stumble in there by accident and then be asked to do things. And so like sifting flour, cutting parchment, everything they really didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And I hated it. Like being a kid, I just wanted to watch Nickelodeon. But I grew up kind of doing that, And so I think, sometimes when you grow up or you see people that look like you doing things, you kind of subconsciously believe that you also can do that. Like you're not hindered in any way.
Yeah.
So I think I kind of took that knowledge and decades later or years later, being an adult now in Chicago, like I moved into my second apartment in the city and it had a beautiful kitchen. It was super big and bright, sun coming through, beautiful cabinetry. It was white with butcher block countertops. I'm just painting the picture here.
It sounds beautiful.
It was beautiful. It was big.
Sounds like it.
And the next morning after moving in, I walk into the kitchen and I said, I'm going to learn how to bake from scratch. And so I started looking up recipes. I remember I was first inspired by this cake I had at IKEA.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm going to stop you for a second. So even though you grew up baking in your home and you watched the women in your family bake, you weren't a baker. You didn't go to pastry school. You didn't go to culinary school. You're just
I'm a regular ass person.
Okay. But you're in this beautiful kitchen one day and you just think, I'm going to learn to bake?
Yeah.
What was that?
I don't know. It was just a desire. I was like, you know what? This kitchen's so big. This kitchen's so beautiful. Why not use it, basically?
Yeah.
So I just had that thought.
And you had no future plans or vision I'm gonna learn to bake, I'm gonna have my company, I'm gonna make the best. No, you were just hey, I'll do something fun this weekend.
Just very recently, one of my friends, she's an actress, she was like, hey, I remember that first year you living in Chicago, me coming to visit you. And we talked about our dreams and our passions. And you said you weren't passionate about anything. And thinking back, I was like, yeah, I think I do remember being a little bit lost. But also just, 23 and figuring out how to be an adult. And I was doing AmeriCorps. And after that, fell into education nonprofit. So by the time I said I'm going to learn how to bake from scratch, I just thought it'd be a hobby. I would just, have my 9 to 5.
Fun. Yeah.
And I kind of treated it as such, like starting out. At the job that I was working in, everyone would have like a partner at work. And when it was your partner's birthday, it was your turn to like celebrate them, plan something. They would, you know, get some kind of treat and we'd have like a time to celebrate that person. And so after a while of me just like baking, bringing stuff into work, people kind of like tasked me with those jobs. And they would basically come up to me and say, hey, it's Amy's birthday. She really likes like strawberries and cream. Like, what can you do? And I would go home and I'd do research, Frankenstein some things together, create a cake. And at this point, none of it was vegan. I was just coming in and like bringing stuff and people really loved it. And I liked it a lot.
It was giving you it was a hobby, but it was somehow fueling like creativity and passion and just kind of giving you a new life.
Yeah, because at that point, my job was great. I was learning a lot of like professional skills, but the organization itself and being in that role, after a certain while, everything was kind of cyclical. And so there wasn't really an opportunity to be creative. And so I think, this was my creative outlet.
So you were teaching yourself to bake. Like, this is so far a concept for me because I'm the worst baker. I really, if I follow a recipe, it doesn't work out. So I just like do not bake. So I can't even like grasp the concept of teaching yourself. How did you?
I would really just find different recipes and like combine them into cakes or like add my own flair, add a different ingredient.
Incredible.
And it was fun. I loved figuring that out because, and then I hadn't even had a name or any. It was just Danielle Tubbs going to work, celebrating people's birthdays, or bringing this to the church potluck, or bringing this to a party. And I was doing that for a couple years.
So I love your story so much that you had this kitchen and you decided to teach yourself and were just naturally good at it. It was part of it sounds like it was part of your family and your purpose from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so you were telling me earlier about this Friday, February 1st, being the anniversary of your dad's death and how even that sparked the start of your company, right?
Yeah.
So say more about that. How did your dad's death affect you turning this hobby of baking, the self-taught thing of baking, into this company?
Yeah. So like I said, I was kind of raised with my mom and my Jamaican side in Miami. And then when I moved here to Chicago as an adult, like right after graduating college, Chicago's a lot closer to Cleveland, Ohio than Miami is. So I started going to Cleveland for Thanksgiving. Over that time, I think it was just like, it was pretty brief. It was 2 years. But I would go see my dad, hang out. He would call me every day, all of that. So we were really like cultivating more of a relationship than we had with me growing up. And that was great. And then one day I was at my job and I think I got a call from my cousin telling me that my dad had had a heart attack and I needed to come. A long story short, my dad ended up dying, and a couple months later, I decided like I should go to therapy for this. I should try to gain some closure with his sudden death and the relationship that we had just started cultivating, and what does this mean, and how do I, become, I guess, healthy again to function in society and whatever else. Being Enneagram 1, I think the perfectionist, I'm like, let me get over this as soon as possible. So I could, be good again, I guess. And so I started going to therapy. And over time, though, it ended up being, I worked through some things for sure. And it ended up being less about my dad's death and more about me complaining about my day job. At this point, I had like switched jobs and, I just kind of felt like I was going through the motions. I had named my business, my side hustle, to Tubby's Taste because my college nickname was Tubby because my last name's Tubbs. And one day my therapist was like, hey, if you could do anything, if you could be paid to do anything, what would you do? And I was like, oh, I do Tubby's Taste for sure. But I don't know how to get paid doing that. Like, there's no way. And so she was like, okay, well, by the next time we meet, I want you to do your research. Find out what it takes to make Tubby's Taste a legit business. And so I went home and over the next week did my research. And so I came back to her, said, hey, yeah, I bought a domain name and now I'm an LLC. So I just kind of like jumped in.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure it out. Like, I think the planning tied into like both of my skills, like admin stuff, and then also just like being creative as well.
I love this. I love that. Well, I mean, it's amazing that you went to therapy after. I'm so sorry for the loss of your dad and on this coming anniversary also. Yeah. It's really amazing that you went to therapy. And I love that it was a journey. I mean, you never could have seen this coming.
Not at
going
all.
to therapy to grieve your dad. And that
I
this
thought I
is
was going
where
to
it
come out
took
with
you.
a man. I thought I was going to come out with my husband. Like, I don't know if he was also going to be at therapy, like waiting for me, or I don't know.
You get a refund if you go into therapy for a man and you don't come out with one.
I'm owed so much money.
All right. So you've got your so it's almost 6 years, right? Is that what you said?
It was, it's almost 5 years.
5 years.
Since I started.
So why vegan? Because you're not vegan.
I'm not.
And usually people love desserts with all the good butter and cream and everything, right?
Yeah.
So like, why vegan?
Yeah. So I started out, like I said, I was bringing stuff to parties, bringing stuff to church events, bringing stuff to work. Then one of my good friends who was vegan or is vegan, she was like, hey, I wish you could make something that I could enjoy. And at first, not being a vegan, I was like, girl, I'm not trying to, be something that I'm not. But it weighed down on me to I was like, okay, I got to be a good friend. Got to figure this out. So I started doing research again, like the nerd that I am, and tried to veganize some of the things that I was making. So at this point, I had started making ice cream. And I experimented a little bit. It took me like 3 or 4 attempts on this pistachio ice cream to make it vegan and delicious by my standards. And so I think I stumbled upon something, found a recipe formula, created this thing that I liked. And I brought it to her and she enjoyed it. And then from there, kind of over time, I kind of made everything vegan. The bug kind of bit me to make things that tasted good, had kind of good ingredients, quality ingredients, and fit this criteria of being vegan but also being delicious. So now the majority of my customers aren't even vegan. Yeah. Or they may send a box of cookies to their vegan friend that lives far away. Or they might bring it to a party where they know there's people with some dietary restrictions in that respect. Or so it's great because it's allowing people to come back together,
which is totally your mission, which is why you do it,
bringing
right?
people together. It's not the sad dairy-free option in the corner, it's everything that I approve of. Yeah. And I'm hoping that other people approve of it too. And people who've tried it have approved. So it's been good.
I love that it was inspired by your friend and you wanting to create something delicious and wonderful for her. And it literally is the best cookie I've ever tasted. I love it so much. And that it is vegan is so, so cool because you're right. People who don't eat dairy or eggs or animal products, right, can enjoy a really fantastic cookie. Yeah. Everyone can eat a delicious cookie. I love that you said it's not like the sad alternative in the corner. These are the gluten-free yucky cookies. Help yourself.
I feel like there's a time and place for lots of different options, but it's dessert. Yeah. It's true dessert. It's not this is my healthy everyday snack. No, celebrate with people you love. Yeah. With Tubby's Taste. Yeah.
So you say that your whole mission is bringing people together. And we were talking before about farmers markets. We were talking over dinner about farmers markets and how that kind of is the epitome of bringing people together and meeting people. So what is it about bringing people together? What is, if you could say I hope Tubby's Taste, 100 years from now will be known for bringing whatever. What do you hope that accomplishes?
Well, I think for me, since I think I live kind of far from home and far from a lot of my friends, there isn't a huge population from Miami, Florida that moves to Chicago, or alumni from University of Florida that moves to Chicago. And so it started as a way for me to connect with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
So I initially started shipping my cookies out. And
like a way for you to send them
send them cookies, or allow them to reconnect with their family as well.
Since that's beautiful.
I love that people are like gifting other people my cookies.
Oh, that's so incredible, Danielle.
It's fun. It's fun to ship them out. It's fun to package them. Like,
you imagine all of those scenarios.
Like, who doesn't get happier when they get a package one?
Right.
And then when it's something they can eat and it tastes really good, like that,
Yeah.
So
it's really incredible to be like making the cookies and packaging them and then imagining like all the love that's going to bring someone who receives it. It's really incredible. Okay, this has been so great, Danielle. I've loved chatting so much. Let's finish with actually 2 questions. I want to ask first, so we love Chicago. You've been here 8 years.
Yep.
Chicago's the best. Forget about the cold, everyone, right now.
Especially in the summertime, the fall, the spring.
Every day but today.
World-class city for theater, for music.
So where must people eat, according to Danielle Tubbs, in Chicago?
Whew. Okay, so this place is close to my heart and also close to my house. But they have known me through so many like jobs and side hustles. And that would be Irazu.
Irazu. Okay. What is that?
So it's Costa Rican food. It's located in Bucktown.
Okay.
They're cash only, FYI, but you can also order
I feel
online.
like the best places are cash only, though. That's kind of like a sign to me that it's good.
They're also closed on Sundays, though, and that's when I crave them the most. Okay. So I don't know if that's
how they get you.
Thing.
It's like when you can't have it, you want it.
Oh, yeah. But their food is so good, and I found them to be, I can take all my vegetarian friends there, and we all leave, filled up. It's great, and the people are great, and they remember you, and they're great.
Love it. Amazing.
And they're great people. So Irazu.
I mean, it sounds amazing right now. I'm like, how are we going to go out in the snow tonight and get it?
Costa Rican food, do it.
Yeah, thank you.
They're great.
Thank you so much for being here with me tonight. As we finish, I would just love if you have one piece of parting wisdom for people as they're thinking about learning to bake or starting a company or bringing joy to people in food that they make. What would be your parting wisdom, your final word to our listeners today on this episode?
I guess my parting wisdom would be, don't underestimate yourself. You'll rise to the occasion, and to take it one day at a time. That might be 3 parting wisdoms.
It's great.
Yeah, I think, think about where you come from, the people you come from. And so for me, I think about my 3 Jamaican cake ladies. My mom is still alive out of the 3 and finds it hilarious that I have a dessert company because like I said, I hated helping when I was a kid. All I wanted to do was watch Nickelodeon. So like, you never know. Yeah. I don't know. Just kind of keep the door open and like, don't be afraid to try something new, pursue your dreams. And think about the people you come from.
I love that. Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate you being here tonight.
It was so fun.
Thank you.